What the light workers won't tell you is that you're living in a feeding ground, a metaphysical slaughterhouse where your energy is being harvested every single day. I'm Bastian Bloodthorne, and welcome to Shrouded Teachings, where we cut through the spiritual bypassing and expose the raw reality that most manifestation teachers are too afraid to acknowledge. Today, we descend into the shadow realm of reality transurfing, not the sanitized version you've heard before, but the unfiltered truth about the metaphysical war zone we call Earth. While the spiritual influencers peddle crystals and empty affirmations, forces beyond your comprehension are feasting on your emotional energy, trapping you in disempowering reality lines, and laughing as you blindly feed them with your reactions. The universe doesn't care about your comfort, only your growth, and growth requires seeing the battlefield for what it truly is. What I'm about to share will disturb most spiritual teachers, because it exposes the game they're unknowingly playing, a game rigged against you from the start. But for those brave enough to face this knowledge, I'll show you how your shadow, that rejected, feared part of yourself, is actually your greatest weapon, your protector, and your key to navigating between reality lines. Forget everything you've been taught about manifestation. It's time to learn how to weaponize your darkness. Earth isn't just a planet, it's a vibrational construct, where consciousness interacts with matter, a feeding ground for what reality transurfing calls pendulums. These are not benevolent thought forms. They are metaphysical predators that have evolved to farm human emotion. The darkness holds the keys that the light conceals. While you've been taught to focus only on raising your vibration, you've remained blind to the true nature of the game. The pendulums, these energy parasites, don't want your light. They want your reaction, your fear, your outrage, your despair. Every strong emotional response you give to external triggers feeds these entities. Turn on your news, scroll through social media. Notice how every headline, every controversy, every piece of content is precisely engineered to provoke an emotional response. This isn't coincidence, it's feeding time. The pendulums have constructed our entire society as an elaborate farm. Politics, religion, consumerism, even aspects of the spiritual community, all serve as sophisticated collection systems designed to trigger emotional discharges that these entities can harvest. Most manifestation teachers are selling you half the equation. They tell you to focus on positive emotions while ignoring the shadow. But that approach is like bringing a flower to a knife fight. It leaves you defenseless on the battlefield. Look around you. Feel the tension in the collective consciousness, the division, the fear, the perpetual outrage. These are not natural states. They are the result of calculated bombardment. The pendulums launch volleys of negativity, not to destroy you, but to farm you, to keep you locked in reactive patterns that generate the specific emotional frequencies they feed upon. The average person is nothing more than a battery in this system, mindlessly discharging energy with every triggered response, every anxious thought, every moment of falling into the traps laid out across our information landscape. But I didn't bring you into the shadows to leave you helpless. I brought you here to show you how to become the predator instead of the prey, how to reverse the flow of energy, how to use the very attacks meant to drain you as fuel for your own metaphysical evolution. Let's cut through the spiritual bypassing and acknowledge what's really happening. You are under attack every day, not just by human-built systems, but by non-physical entities that have been feeding on human consciousness since before recorded history. The real question isn't whether this is happening, it's what you're going to do about it. In reality transurfing, a metaphysical practice developed by the quantum physicist Vadim Zeland, pendulums are described as energy informational structures that feed on human attention and emotional energy. But what most teachers won't tell you is how sophisticated these entities have become. Pendulums don't just feed, They farm. They cultivate. They have learned exactly which buttons to push, which fears to trigger, which dreams to dangle before you, only to snatch them away. A pendulum begins as a thought form, gathering strength as more humans feed it with similar thoughts and emotions. Once established, it develops a survival instinct. It will do anything to continue receiving energy. The political movements you feel compelled to join, the consumer identities you attach to, the spiritual groups that demand your allegiance, these are all pendulums. They survive by creating adherents, human batteries who reliably discharge emotional energy that the pendulum can harvest. The more polarizing, the more emotionally charged a concept is, the stronger its pendulum becomes. There's a sinister force working against your desires right now, and it's not just one pendulum. It's an entire ecosystem of them, all competing for your energy. Health scares, financial collapse, environmental disaster, political enemies. These narratives are carefully cultivated and fed to you because your fear response is rich in the exact energetic nutrients these entities require. But here's what's truly insidious. The pendulums have learned to disguise themselves as salvation. The very groups claiming to fight against problems are often feeding from the same energy as those creating the problems. The pendulum doesn't care which side you're on. It only cares that you're emotionally invested in the game. This is why your manifestation practice keeps failing. While you're setting intentions and making vision boards, you're simultaneously feeding reactive emotional energy to pendulums that actively work to keep you disempowered. Every time you feel triggered by a news headline, every time you fall into despair about the state of the world, every time you react with outrage to something designed to outrage you, you're feeding the very forces that ensure your desires remain unrealized. The pendulums maintain their power by keeping humanity in a constant state of reaction. They bombard the collective consciousness with precisely tuned frequencies of negativity, knowing exactly which emotions will be triggered in response. The mass formation of fear, the carefully orchestrated outrage, the cultivated despair about humanity's future, these are not accidents. They are sophisticated harvesting technologies developed over millennia. But now that you can see the game, you can begin to play it differently. Not by ignoring it, that's what the lightworkers wrongly teach, but by understanding the battlefield and wielding your shadow as both shield and sword. Everything you've been taught about your shadow is designed to keep you small, to keep you manageable, to ensure you remain a reliable battery for the pendulums. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is the most primal, powerful aspect of your consciousness, the part of you that knows how to fight, how to protect, how to survive against impossible odds. This is why the pendulums have worked so hard, through religion, through spirituality, through social conditioning, to convince you to reject your shadow. A person connected to their shadow is a terrible battery. They can't be easily triggered. They can't be reliably farmed. They see the volleys of negativity for what they are, harvesting attempts, and they transmute that energy rather than discharging it. The shadow is the alchemical vessel within your psyche. It's where lead is transformed into gold, where attacks become fuel, where emotional triggering becomes conscious empowerment. Think of your heart and soul as the divine child within you, pure, creative, filled with possibility. This child requires protection in the metaphysical war zone we inhabit, and your shadow is the warrior, the protector, the champion that stands guard at the gates of your consciousness. When you reject your shadow, you send this guardian into exile. You leave your most vulnerable aspects exposed to predatory forces. The pendulums know this. They've spent millennia convincing you to disarm yourself through spiritual enlightenment that rejects darkness. The integration of your shadow doesn't mean becoming cruel or harmful. It means acknowledging the full spectrum of your being, including the parts that know how to say no. The parts that can set boundaries, the parts that can recognize a threat and respond with appropriate force. Your anger, your cunning, your ambition, your desire. These aren't obstacles to spiritual growth. They're essential aspects of your spiritual armor. The universe doesn't reward wishful thinking. It responds to power, and you've been taught to reject the very parts of yourself that contain the raw energy needed to bend reality. Let me tell you what happened when I first embraced my shadow during a particularly vicious pendulum attack. My financial reality was collapsing. Anxiety consumed me. Every night, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of dread that seemed to have no source. Traditional manifestation techniques were useless. Affirmations felt hollow. Vision boards seemed like children's drawings in the face of the darkness engulfing me. It wasn't until I turned toward my shadow, the part of me capable of rage, of ruthless determination, of cold, calculated action, that things began to shift. Instead of trying to raise my vibration, I allowed my shadow to transmute the negative energy bombarding me. I stopped resisting the darkness and instead asked it, how can we use this? How can we transform this attack into fuel? Within days, opportunities emerged from unexpected places. My financial situation didn't just stabilize, it transformed. But more importantly, I felt a shield forming around my consciousness. The pendulum attacks that once left me drained now bounced off the shield, or better yet, were absorbed and converted into personal power. This is the alchemical function of the shadow that light workers don't understand. Your shadow doesn't just protect you from pendulums, it feeds on them. It grows stronger with each attack it successfully transmutes. Remember, the darkness isn't your enemy, it's where your power has been waiting. Now we come to the core mechanism of how pendulums trap you in disempowering circumstances, and how your shadow can help you escape. Reality, according to Transurfing, isn't singular. It's a near-infinite collection of potential lines that already exist in what's called the space of variations. Your consciousness doesn't create these lines. It chooses which ones to experience through a combination of intention and energetic state. Think of reality lines as train tracks stretching into the distance. Some lead to versions of reality where you're powerful, abundant, fulfilled. Others lead to versions where you're struggling, sick, trapped. You're not creating the tracks, you're choosing which train to board. The pendulums don't want you to know that you can switch tracks. Their entire harvesting operation depends on keeping you running on reality lines that generate maximum emotional discharge. They need you anxious, reactive, and disempowered. This is why when you try to manifest something significant, you often encounter immediate resistance, mysterious obstacles, sudden illness, relationship conflict, financial setbacks. These aren't coincidences, they're pendulum attacks designed to keep you on predictable, harvestable reality lines. Most manifestation teachers are selling you half the equation. They tell you to visualize your desired reality line but give you no weapons to fight off the pendulums that will try to prevent your transfer. This is where your shadow becomes essential. When you attempt to shift reality lines, pendulums will launch coordinated attacks to trigger negative emotional states that lock you into your current coordinates. Your shadow, that part of you capable of recognizing enemies and fighting back, is what allows you to maintain your course despite these attacks. While the light worker stands defenseless against pendulum bombardment, the shadow practitioner absorbs these attacks, transmutes the energy, and uses it as fuel to accelerate toward their chosen reality line. There's a nefarious force working against your desires right now, but your own shadow is the antidote. It's the part of you that can thrive in the storm, that can absorb chaos and convert it to order, that can take negativity and transmute it into forward momentum. Let me show you how this works in practice. It's time for the forbidden knowledge that separates those who master reality transurfing from those who merely dabble in manifestation. I'm going to show you how to weaponize your shadow to transmute pendulum attacks into fuel for reality line transfers. The first shadow gate you must pass through is acknowledging what you truly want, not what you should want, not what looks good on your vision board, but the raw, primal desire that you've been too afraid to admit even to yourself. The pendulums have programmed you to feel shame about your desires, to question whether you deserve abundance, to fear your own power. This programming keeps you generating the frequency of lack, the exact emotional energy they feed upon. Your shadow doesn't care about this conditioning. It operates beyond social programming. When you connect with your shadow, you access desires untainted by pendulum influence. Your true desires, not the ones implanted to keep you farmed. The second technique is negative visualization transmutation. While traditional manifestation teaches you to only visualize positive outcomes, this approach leaves you vulnerable to pendulum attacks. Instead, allow your shadow to visualize the worst-case scenarios, not to manifest them, but to remove their energetic charge. When you face your fears directly through your shadow, pendulums can't use them against you. See the disaster, feel it fully, then watch as your shadow transforms that energy into determined action. This isn't dwelling on negativity, it's alchemical transformation of fear into power. The third shadow technique is pendulum identification and redirection. Your shadow can sense pendulums that your conscious mind might miss. When you feel suddenly drained, inexplicably anxious, or irrationally triggered, pause and ask your shadow, which pendulum is attempting to feed right now? Once identified, don't resist the pendulum. That only feeds it more. Instead, redirect its energy. If the news triggers fear, transmute that fear into focused action on your goals. If social media triggers envy, transmute that envy into detailed planning for your own success. The pendulums expect you to discharge emotional energy outward. When you instead channel it inward as fuel, you disrupt their harvesting patterns while accelerating toward your chosen reality line. The fourth technique is shadow boundary enforcement. Your shadow knows exactly where your energetic boundaries should be, and it doesn't hesitate to enforce them. When people, media, or situations attempt to trigger emotional discharges, your shadow steps forward as protector. It says no without guilt. It disconnects from energy vampires without explanation. It curates your information intake with ruthless precision. This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's strategic energy management in a metaphysical war zone. Every boundary your shadow enforces is another defense against pendulum attacks. The fifth and most powerful technique is reality line navigation through shadow intent. Traditional manifestation focuses on the light aspects of intention, hope, optimism, faith. But in a pendulum-infested reality, these aren't enough. Your shadow brings the missing elements: determination, cunning, strategic thinking, and unyielding will. When you set intentions from your whole being, including your shadow, you create a force that pendulums cannot easily derail. Don't just visualize your desired reality line, command it with the full authority of your integrated being. Don't hope for transfer, declare it inevitable with your shadow's unwavering conviction. The universe doesn't reward wishful thinking. It responds to power. And your shadow is the aspect of you that pendulums fear most, because it speaks the language of power fluently. As you implement these shadow techniques, you'll begin to notice specific signs that indicate you're successfully transferring to more favorable reality lines. First, you'll experience pendulum backlash. When you start effectively redirecting energy and preparing to jump reality lines, the pendulums that have been feeding on you will notice the change in energy flow. They'll launch coordinated attacks to trigger your old emotional patterns. You might face unusual obstacles. Relationships might suddenly become tense. Health issues might flare. Financial concerns might intensify. Most people interpret these as signs they're doing something wrong. The shadow practitioner recognizes them as confirmation. they're doing something right. These attacks aren't signs of failure. They're the desperate attempts of pendulums to prevent you from escaping their harvesting operations. Each attack you transmute accelerates your reality line transfer. The second sign is synchronistic confirmation. As you begin slipping between reality lines, you'll notice meaningful coincidences increasing dramatically. Names, numbers, or symbols related to your intentions will appear with startling frequency. These aren't just random events. They're glimpses of the reality line you're transferring toward bleeding into your current experience. They confirm that the space of variations is responding to your shadow-empowered intentions. The third sign is the dissolution of persistent problems. Issues that seemed unsolvable suddenly unravel on their own. People who were obstacles mysteriously removed themselves from your path. Resources appear precisely when needed. This happens because you're no longer on the reality line, where those problems existed. As you transfer to more favorable coordinates in the space of variations, entire categories of obstacles simply cease to be part of your experience. But the most profound sign of successful reality line transfer is internal. You'll feel a deep, unshakable knowing that was absent before. Not fleeting optimism or temporary motivation, but a bone-deep certainty about your path that no pendulum attack can disrupt. This is your shadow announcing its victory, its successful protection of your consciousness through the turbulent process of reality line transfer. We've descended deep into the shadow realm of reality transurfing, and it's time to integrate what you've discovered. You now understand that Earth is a metaphysical war zone, where pendulums bombard humanity with negativity to harvest emotional energy. You've seen how your shadow, far from being an obstacle to spiritual growth, is actually the champion and protector your heart and soul need in order to navigate this battlefield. You've learned specific techniques to transmute pendulum attacks into fuel for reality line transfers. This knowledge places you at a crossroads. You can forget what you've learned and return to being an efficient battery for the pendulums. You can continue discharging emotional energy on command whenever the news, social media, or carefully engineered social conflicts trigger you. Or you can choose the path of the shadow alchemist. You can recognize each pendulum attack as an opportunity to gather power. You can transmute negative energy rather than discharging it. You can use your shadow as both shield and sword in the metaphysical battles that shape your reality. The pendulums are counting on your forgetfulness. They're betting that the programming runs too deep, that even armed with this knowledge, you'll slip back into reactive patterns that keep you locked in disempowering reality lines. Prove them wrong. Starting today, whenever you feel triggered, whenever anxiety or fear or anger rises, pause and remember. This is not random. This is a harvesting attempt. This is a pendulum trying to keep you from transferring to a reality line where its influence over you diminishes. Each time you successfully transmute rather than discharge, you deal a devastating blow to the pendulum's harvesting operation. Each time you use your shadow to protect your consciousness, you accelerate toward reality lines where you hold increasing power. The metaphysical war zone doesn't disappear as you transfer to more favorable reality lines, but your position within it transforms dramatically. From prey to predator, from harvested to harvester, from unconscious battery to conscious creator. Remember, the darkness isn't your enemy. It's where your power has been waiting. Your shadow isn't something to transcend. It's your most powerful ally in the battle for conscious reality creation. Now, descend, transform, and manifest what others fear to claim. Embrace the shadow. Manifest the impossible. For those of you still with me, we now enter the inner sanctum of shadow work and reality transurfing. What I'm about to share goes beyond what even experienced practitioners typically understand about the metaphysical battlefield. The pendulums don't just exist externally. They have implanted fragments of themselves within your psyche, thought patterns, emotional triggers, limiting beliefs that activate on command to generate the specific energetic frequencies they feed upon. These internal pendulum fragments disguise themselves as your own thoughts, that voice of doubt when you're about to succeed, that inexplicable anxiety when things are going well, that sudden self-sabotage when you're approaching a reality line transfer. Identifying these planted fragments is essential to advanced reality transurfing, and your shadow, that part of you with perfect memory and unflinching honesty, knows exactly where these foreign energetic structures are located within your consciousness. While your conscious mind might be deceived, your shadow can instantly recognize energy that isn't authentically yours. It can feel the subtle vibration of external manipulation. Here's how to work with your shadow, to identify and neutralize these internal pendulum fragments. First, dialogue with your shadow through meditation or journaling. Ask it to reveal thoughts and emotions that don't truly belong to you. Your shadow will highlight specific triggers that generate disproportionate emotional responses. These are almost always pendulum implants. Second, once identified, don't try to eliminate these fragments through resistance. Instead, surround them with conscious awareness. Observe them without feeding them. Your shadow will show you how to encapsulate these foreign energies until they starve from lack of reaction. Third, replace the pendulum fragment with authentic shadow energy. Where there was programmed fear, install protective vigilance. Where there was artificial lack, install primal abundance. Where there was implanted unworthiness, install shadow-empowered self-valuation. The most dangerous pendulums aren't the obvious external ones. They're the ones that have convinced you they're part of your authentic self. Political identities that trigger automatic outrage, consumer patterns that generate periodic dissatisfaction, spiritual beliefs that create guilt when you connect with your power. These aren't you. They're sophisticated harvesting technologies disguised as personality. Your shadow knows the difference. It remembers your essence before the pendulums began their programming, and it can guide you back to that original state of empowered consciousness. As you clear these internal pendulum fragments, reality line transfer becomes exponentially easier. Without internal sabotage mechanisms, your consciousness moves freely toward its desired coordinates in the space of variations. This is why those who embrace their shadow often experience sudden, dramatic reality shifts that seem impossible to conventional manifestation practitioners. They're not just setting intentions, they're removing the hidden obstacles that have been preventing those intentions from materializing. Everything you've been taught about manifestation is designed to keep you small. True reality creation isn't just about attracting, it's about becoming ungovernable by pendulum influence. It's about energetic sovereignty in a realm designed for harvesting. Your shadow is the key to this sovereignty. Not because it's dark, but because it's authentic. It's the part of you that existed before social conditioning, before pendulum programming, before you were taught to reject your power. We've focused primarily on individual reality line navigation, but there's another dimension to this metaphysical war zone that few dare to discuss. The collective battlefield where mass consciousness becomes the prize. The largest pendulums aren't content feeding on individuals. They farm entire populations. They engineer social movements, belief systems, and cultural narratives, specifically designed to generate maximum emotional discharge across millions of minds simultaneously. War, economic collapse, health crisis, environmental disasters. Beyond their physical reality, these events serve as mass harvesting operations. The pendulums don't cause these events directly. They amplify them, distort perceptions around them, and ensure they generate the maximum possible emotional discharge. Your individual shadow work doesn't just protect you, it contributes to a collective resistance against these mass harvesting operations. Every time you refuse to discharge the expected emotional response to engineered triggers, you create a ripple in the collective field. You become what Transurfing calls a foreign inclusion, a conscious element that disrupts automated energy harvesting patterns. And as more individuals awaken to this reality and engage their shadows as protectors, these foreign inclusions begin to alter the collective reality lines available to humanity. This is how we fight back on the largest scale, not through resistance, which only feeds the pendulums more, but through conscious transmutation of the very energy they attempt to harvest. When a global crisis emerges, the light workers offer prayers but remain energetically vulnerable. The shadow practitioners recognize the harvesting operation behind the crisis and transmute their emotional responses into powerful, directed action. One by one, as consciousness awakens to the metaphysical battlefield, the mass harvesting becomes less efficient. Reality lines previously closed to humanity begin to open as possibilities. Timelines dominated by pendulum influence become harder to maintain. You aren't just changing your personal reality when you master these shadow techniques. You're contributing to a profound shift in what's possible for human consciousness as a whole. The pendulums know this. It's why the programming against shadow work runs so deep. It's why authentic spiritual empowerment is systematically distorted into disempowering practices. The harvesting operations depend on your shadow remaining exiled, your power remaining unclaimed. Let's bring this knowledge into your daily reality, with specific practices that weaponize your shadow against pendulum influence and accelerate reality line transfers. The first daily practice is shadow scanning. Each morning before engaging with external information, sit in silence and allow your shadow to scan your energy field. It will identify any places where pendulum attacks have attached during sleep, or where internal pendulum fragments are active. Don't judge what your shadow reveals, simply acknowledge these energetic attachments and allow your shadow to transmute them into fuel. This clears your field before the day's battles begin. The second practice is pendulum-proof intention setting. Rather than setting intentions from a place of lack or need, set them from your shadow's position of empowered claiming. Instead of, "I hope to attract abundance," your shadow declares, "I command this reality line of abundance into manifestation now." Feel the difference in energetic authority. The first invites pendulum interference, the second repels it. The third daily practice is strategic energy conservation. Your shadow knows which battles are worth fighting and which are pendulum traps designed to drain you. Throughout your day, before responding emotionally to triggers, consult your shadow. Is this worth my energy, or is this a harvesting attempt? You'll be shocked to discover how many situations that seem to demand your emotional energy are actually carefully disguised traps. The fourth practice is reality line visualization with shadow protection. Each night, visualize your movement along your chosen reality line, but add a critical element. See your shadow surrounding this visualization, protecting it from pendulum interference. This isn't just imagination, it's energetic shielding of your intended reality coordinates. While your conscious mind navigates toward your desired manifestation, your shadow ensures that harvesting attempts don't disrupt this navigation. The final and most powerful daily practice is shadow integration affirmation. Unlike traditional affirmations that pendulums can easily sabotage, these declarations come from your fully integrated being. I am both light and shadow, creator and destroyer, and in this wholeness, I am ungovernable by external influence. My shadow transmutes all pendulum attacks into fuel for my journey along my chosen reality line. I claim my full energetic sovereignty and recognize all harvesting attempts as opportunities for alchemical transformation. With each transmutation, I transfer to lines of reality, of increasing power, abundance, and conscious creation. Speak these not with hope, but with the unshakable authority of your shadow self. Feel them, resonating, not as wishful thinking, but as commands to the fabric of reality itself. As we approach the conclusion of this journey into the shadow realm of reality transurfing, I must reveal the ultimate truth about reality lines and your shadow's purpose. Beyond the countless reality lines where your circumstances vary, where you have more money, better relationships, improved health, there exists an ultimate reality line that pendulums have worked tirelessly to hide from human consciousness. On this reality line, you exist as a fully sovereign creator, immune to energetic harvesting, capable of conscious manifestation without interference. Your shadow and light aspects are fully integrated, forming what ancient alchemists called the philosopher's stone, the perfected consciousness that transforms all it touches. The pendulums fear this reality line above all others because on it, their harvesting operations become impossible. A fully integrated human, shadow and light in perfect balance, generates energy rather than discharging it, creates rather than reacts, transforms rather than succumbs. This isn't spiritual fantasy. It's the ultimate destination of shadow work and reality transurfing. It's not about escaping the metaphysical war zone, but about becoming so powerful within it that you transform from hunted to hunter, from battery to generator, from unconscious pawn to conscious player. Your shadow has been guiding you toward this reality line from the beginning. Every pendulum attack it helps you transmute, every reality transfer it facilitates, every fragment of consciousness it reclaims from programming, all lead toward this ultimate integration. The darkness holds the keys that the light conceals. What the light workers won't tell you, what they themselves don't understand, is that transcendence doesn't come from rejecting the shadow. It comes from embracing it so completely that the very distinction between light and shadow dissolves. On this ultimate reality line, the metaphysical war zone still exists, but you move through it not as a participant, but as a conscious creator, witnessing the game while remaining untouched by its rules. This is the secret the pendulums have kept hidden. Your shadow isn't just a protector of your heart and soul, it's the missing half of your divine nature. When fully reclaimed, it doesn't just help you navigate reality lines, it reveals you as an architect of reality itself. We've traversed the shadow realm of reality transurfing together, peeling back the veil on Earth's nature as a metaphysical war zone and feeding ground for pendulums. You've discovered how these energy entities bombard humanity with negativity to harvest emotional discharges. You've learned how your shadow, far from being something to transcend, is actually your champion and protector in this battlefield. The knowledge you now possess places you at an energetic crossroads. You can continue allowing pendulums to farm your emotional energy, keeping you trapped in disempowering reality lines. Or you can embrace your shadow, transmute attacks into fuel, and transfer to reality lines of increasing power and conscious creation. Remember that every emotional trigger is a harvesting attempt. Every obstacle that appears when you try to manifest is a pendulum attempting to keep you on predictable, farmable reality lines. Every internal doubt that sabotages your progress is likely a pendulum fragment embedded in your psyche. But remember also that your shadow holds the alchemical power to transmute all of these attacks into accelerant for your reality line transfers. What the pendulums intend as harvesting, your shadow transforms into fuel. What they deploy as obstacles, your shadow transforms into stepping stones. This is how we fight back. Not through resistance, which only generates more harvestable energy, but through alchemical transmutation that turns the weapons of our adversaries into tools for our liberation. From this moment forward, see the metaphysical battlefield with clear eyes. Recognize the volleys of negativity for what they are. Feel your shadow rising to meet each attack, not with fear, but with alchemical intention. Watch as the reality lines available to you begin to shift toward increasing sovereignty and conscious creation. Now descend, transform, and manifest what others fear to claim. Remember, The darkness isn't your enemy. It's where your power has been waiting. Embrace the shadow. Manifest the impossible.